on as a woman. Yeah.
I almost forgot the video. I won't forget you.
You know, I'm totally trying to like.
Oh,
I'm totally trying to.
everyone says hi.
I looked at the topic ahead of time, so I'll just keep talking.
You're like, I know the topic. So, week 3, guys. This is going to be a little heavier week. Which, I mean, I can't really say that. Every week is heavy, so I can't really say that. If you weren't here last week, did you guys get a chance to watch?
I didn't.
That's okay if you didn't.
I all of it. I watched part of it, but I didn't get to see all
No,
of it.
it's totally fine if you didn't. Really, a lot of our workbook is it covers pretty much everything.
Okay.
And the at-home exercise is exactly like what we did in class. So last week was loneliness. And loneliness was a big emotion. I know that watching and admiring the movement and just seeing how open people were able to get was really, really special, because a lot of these deep-rooted emotions, loneliness, grief, these are all things that happen and we experience far beyond our adulthood, especially loneliness. Loneliness is often found in childhood. And so this next week that we're diving into is week 3, and it's grief.
We have a break where we have like happiness.
Don't you worry, girl. But we do have grief this week. And the one thing that the quote that really stuck out to me that I wanted to share is, grief is like the ocean. It comes in waves, ebbing and flowing. Sometimes the water is calm and sometimes it's overwhelming. All we can do is learn to swim. And so before we dive in, I know we all pulled a card. And so with your card, if you reflect on your card a little bit, what message do you pull from it that can call in something or someone you're grieving? And it doesn't have to be an external person. It can be a part of yourself. It can be an experience that you feel like you've lost. Something that you feel like you are grieving. Whenever you're done, there's no rush, you guys, just whenever you're done, the next question is, when you lean into the waves of grief, where do you feel this in your body? And what does that experience look and feel like for you?
It's like the card. It's like food.
I love that. And so we're each going to share our card. You don't have to share your message if you don't feel like it. So we're at least going to share our card. And just kind of ponder a little bit. I mean, I feel like we're all pretty open. That's why we're here, right? That's why we're here. And I'll go first. So my card is abundance. And when I think of grief, and I think of abundance, like pull a card that calls in something or someone that you're grieving. And I look at abundant and I'm like, well, how do you grieve abundance? I'm never going to be mad about that. But when I really started to think about it, I know that, well, within my personal life, with the partner that I just had, things felt more abundant in the beginning. And realizing that I can grieve that, knowing that that circumstance changed, but I can also look forward to abundance at the same time. So for me, it's the ebbing and the flowing of abundance, grieving abundance, but also being excited for it too. And so that's really the message that I got, is it's okay to grieve the things that maybe made you feel abundant, but it's also okay to welcome in new abundance. So that's kind of the message that I got. Anybody want to go next?
Hello,
Thank you, Eva.
I got ritual, which is interesting and cool. It says creating a sacred experience to honor my journey in ritual. And so I've been thinking about it. I split up with my husband last May. I need to pick a date, like 22nd, 23rd, 24th, somewhere around there. It was like right before Memorial Day. And just have like a annual like party celebration or something. So, but then we had to relate it to grief. So it was like, well, of course, like there's a lot of grief with like, happily ever after was the thought originally. That's not how it worked out. So like the grief of that not being what I thought it was is an interesting way to look at it. But then it also said have a flower petal bath. So I have homework that I want to do. That sounds fun. And also just like it says, like ritual helps. It's kind of do all this magical stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I love Thanksgiving and Christmas and 4th of July, and I can just start making my own holidays. I'm gonna do it.
I love that.
I know, right?
That's a really good
I can't believe
idea.
I like love a vibe. So like lights and tapestries, and so yeah, make a fucking day. Like May 22nd is Divorce Day, but I might call it something else. Freedom Day? I don't know.
Freedom? Independence Day.
So I have some grief stuff and some opportunity I never really considered to do, which is cool. Very
I
exciting.
love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
So I got clarity, which I was originally excited about because I was hoping that it means that I'm getting clarity. But I think next step is it where I actually have a pretty similar story to yours for that, because through the whole loneliness week, which I had my period at the same time as you guys, it was really, really fucking rough. I'm grieving my husband. I'm grieving the person I fell in love with. I also divorced last year, and I think a big part of it is like grieving the life I thought I was gonna have, and the clarity that goes with that. Where I was like, my goal was him, me was my goal, and having my happily ever after with him was my goal, and now I'm like, like, what do I do? And I know that I'm a super strong, awesome woman that has everything to do all the things and be great, but it sucks. And I've been crying nonstop, honestly. I think, I don't know. And it's just, like this, when you say like, where does it feel in your body? Like, literally, like there's a giant hole where it used to be my heart. And I feel empty, I feel sad and empty, and I can't even do anything about it. Just to make it clear, I don't regret him. I know that was the right thing to do. It's just having my person, having no doubt about who he is, and having no doubt about what I have to do, which is making him happy to be happy. And that's it. And that sucks.
Very similar experience.
I don't mind jumping. Because mine was like, oh my god, really? It's feel. And it's very appropriate because the majority of my life, I didn't know I had ADHD. And I didn't know I was an empath. And I just knew I didn't fit in. And so I was masking all the time. Because people would get upset when I got upset. And I totally along the same lines, we all tiptoed around my dad to make him happy. So he would, he was verbally abusive, but otherwise, kind of been asking the last few years, and he died in December, so that's okay. But it's like that, along with him, the last few years being in denial of my mom's dementia, and losing mom. And suddenly it's like, she's not fully gone, and dealing with interfering friends who are like, oh, she's fine, and, but yet they're not there every day and they don't visit or any of that stuff. But I just got so used to holding things in. Like yesterday at the Mariners game, we were unloading from Uber and it took a little while, and there's some guy on the sidewalk just screaming at the top of his lungs, like, get out now. And I was so overwhelmed that I almost couldn't get out of the car to get out. And I didn't let anybody know how much that bothered me, but it's like I could feel his energy. I didn't even look up to see who it was yelling, if it was a cop or, just an asshole. And just even now, it's like, I got so used to holding everything in. It's hard for me to express emotions. I'll be crying in the car, because I'll think of, Jonathan's dad died 2 years ago, so I didn't know him very well, but it was very awesome. And just other things, things I want moms to come up, and I'm like, it's my mom. So I was like, crap, I gotta stop talking. And Jonathan's fine. We've seen each other through a lot. But I still kind of hold back, even though I know it's safe to be expressing him, So that's why I was like, this is appropriate.
That's a lot of feelings to be holding in for a long time now.
I got practice.
Ooh.
And that sounds great, but it isn't. There's nothing great about practice. I've had a lot of opportunity to practice lately. Practice patience and putting others first and stepping back. My granddaughter just graduated and turned 18, so the whole family was there to celebrate, the whole family being my ex-husband and the reason why we were ex. And it's been 21 years, and so she approached me and wanted to make amends, which was fine, but she doesn't know the whole story. So So I'm practicing keeping my mouth closed. And then the other side of it is practice my practice. What I do has been put on the back burner while I caregive for my parents and my ex-husband's dad and everything else. So it's like, yeah, it's hard. Practice is hard. Practice is hard.
It's really hard. And I think that was the most interesting thing about this week is these cards are, at first, if you don't think of the prompts, they're very positive, like abundance. Yes, absolutely. I
Yes.
want this. But what the purpose of that is it's to be able to see the light and the dark. It's being able to see the contrast of just because something may look positive doesn't necessarily mean it's always positive. Kind of like our emotions. Our emotions aren't always happy, just like they're not always grief, or loneliness, or fear. There's so much more depth to these feelings, and I can resonate with everybody. And I feel like we all can kind of relate to each other in a way where we all might have different experiences, but we all can understand the feeling. You know, when you mentioned, Corinne, like the hollowness or like the hole, like I completely understand what that feels like. And one of the reasons why I put the question of like, where do you feel that in your body, is because oftentimes when it comes to these emotions, we get in our head about it, but we don't get into our bodies. And I know that I've really had to practice, thanks therapist, because of my therapist, stopping and doing a body scan. Okay, where am I feeling this in my body? Oh, it's in my heart space. Oh, okay. What do I usually feel when there's something in my heart space? Usually it's something that's absent. Usually it's something that is like that hurts or that feels like a dig almost. Betrayal, things like that, emotions like that, I feel are usually held right in here. Usually, a lot of times our throat chakra will get blocked up. I don't know about you guys, but mine is very good at just doing okay, and then we're just going to put a cap right there. And so the one thing that I really love about the week of grief is it is a heavy emotion. And when we learn how to move through grief, and when we learn how to actually feel grief, it can feel almost intolerable. That's usually why people have these different behaviors that come out when they're grieving. Some of it is going on dates a week after you break up. Others, I wonder who that is. Other behaviors are things like, isolating. It could be the opposite. It could be isolating. It could be overanalyzing, or it could be gambling. It could be substance abuse. It could be sex. It could be so many different things. And it all kind of relates to, and I believe I've talked about it week one, internal family systems. So we have our true self, which is the healed core of who we are. It's our soul. And that is something where that is us. That is our authenticity. But then we have three other parts of ourselves. One of them is our managers. They're the ones that like to pick apart. They're the ones that like to analyze and criticize and be judgmental and do all of these things up in here. But then there are also firefighters. And firefighters are usually behaviors. So it could be addiction. It could be gambling. It could be be sex, it could be violence, it could be self-harm, it could be, there's a long list of what behaviors can look like to cope with the judgment and the managers. But ultimately, the reason why we have these managers is because we have these exiles. And the exiles are fear, grief, loneliness, shame. Those are the parts of ourselves that really like to hide. They're the things that are deeply rooted, that start from the very beginning. And so oftentimes when the exiles try to come into the picture, not that they're bad, they're never bad, but when the exiles try to drive the bus, the managers start to pick apart the parts of themselves. And because they don't know how to communicate properly, they result in the firefighters trying to put the fire out. It's the firefighters and the behaviors that are trying to manage the deep feelings that a lot of us in general like to run from, because they're painful, because they're deeply rooted. There are the feelings and the emotions that a lot of people sometimes spend their whole life not confronting. And that's exactly why I chose the weeks that I did, is because it's, when we did our Moving with Shadow event, we talked about the shadow. And we talked about how it's not good and it's not bad. A lot of the time, the shadow are those exiled emotions. And even though those exiled emotions feel pretty damn bad when you're experiencing them, we really learning how to invite that in so you can actually feel them, so that the managers and the firefighters can chill out a little bit and not do their job. It gives the essence of who we are time to communicate and confront the shadow. That's being compassionate. It's being understanding of yourself. It's self-forgiveness. I said compassionate, right? Yes, I did. But we'll do a double dose of compassion because it's very, very important. But oftentimes when we have those exiled emotions, it's because we're not taught in our society how to be compassionate with ourselves. We are taught to judge and shame and conform. And so in this space, we're going to meet all of these feelings. We're going to meet all of the shadows. We're going to meet all the managers and the firefighters. We're just going to call them all in. We're going to have a meeting, and we're going to confront them, but with kindness, with compassion, with love and support. And I think that is what is especially important. Is, it's week 3 and I still can't believe it's week 3. I feel like it's week 1. Like, it's crazy. But it's a really good opportunity, because the very last 2 weeks are weeks I'm very excited for. So, you guys have the workbook, so I'll just say it.
I haven't cheated yet.
You're like, I haven't cheated, I promise. I don't know who there has. No, I'm just kidding. Love you guys. The way that I have this structured is week 1 is fear. Because we were all here and it's all like, what the fuck are we doing? This is heavy shit. I'm a little bit nervous for what's going to come up. Week 2 is loneliness, because that's a core wound that goes back to even infancy. Sometimes I was a cry it out baby. I was a baby where my mom would just set me down and leave and let me cry it out. And I understand in moments of like, I'm a parent and I'm going to rip my freaking hair out, and it's better for me to set this baby down and go take a minute and come back, but that was not how I was. I was just, she's crying, feed her, change her, if she's fine, just let her cry. And that loneliness can go back to infancy. It can go back to childhood, being the kid that didn't have a lot of friends. It can be being a parentified child where you were too busy being the other parent that you got a chance to have friendships. So there's so many ways that loneliness can show up. Grief is an interesting emotion because grief usually comes a little bit later, when you can start to remember, when you can start to, oh, you know, of course it can happen in infancy. Of course, you know, there's so much that goes beyond that. You know, things like adoption, things like losing a parent, a loved one, a friend, a sibling. But grief is a very complex emotion because it is about loss, not about loneliness. And there's a difference between being alone and having a loss. Even though getting a loss can feel very lonesome, a loss is being completely removed. And I think that is some of the beauty of this week. Is one of the experiences that I have had. I've had a lot of grief in my life. And it's an emotion that I feel relatively comfortable with now. And the heaviness, the weight of it. One of the things that I've learned from it, though, is the ebb and flow. Being able to experience emotions like grief makes space for you to be able to feel emotions like joy. And so this week is grief. Next week, just so y'all know, is shame. That's also going to be a big week. But the following week is hope. The following week is hope. And then the week after that is joy. You're like, yes! Everyone's clapping. Yay, thank goodness. Here's the crazy part, though. With all of these weeks, you would think like, oh, hope and joy, hell yeah. Like, I'm excited for those weeks. They're not as heavy. They can be equally heavy. You're like, wow, thanks.
Like, is that supposed to be fun?
And the reason being is when you have experienced a lot of these emotions that we're going over, it can be really uncomfortable to experience hope and joy if you're used to experiencing other heavy feelings. So what we're going to learn today is how to dive into grief a little bit. We're going to invite grief in. And we're going to say, you know what? Like, I know that we're going through you right now. And grief is an emotion that comes and goes a lot. It comes and goes a lot. And Joanna, your story that you shared really resonated with, you know, with your dad, but then also your mom. Like, having her here, but not having her here. And so it's like a perpetual cycle of grief.
Yeah, and then it's a little bittersweet. I forgot to mention, there's one happy day. It's like, now all of us can relax because we don't have to run around trying to deal with what Dad would like when we're all getting together. So there's a little joy there still. And I just forgot to mention that part.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's.
Yeah. Well, and you know, even from my own experience as a single mom, my son is highly impacted by autism. He does not speak like verbal language. He can say some things, but he doesn't have a dialogue. And as much as I love him, as much as I can find the joy every single day, there is a grief that happens when we are out in public. There is a grief that happens when we are at the park and I see a neurotypical 12-year-old and then I see my 12-year-old. There's a grief that happens when, you know, someone comes up to him and asks him what his favorite TV show is and he can't tell them. But we all have these different levels of grief. It's the grief of grieving a future that you thought you would have. It's grieving, grieving wanting to do what you want to do and have your business flourish, but having to have the grief of, I have to put that on the back burner in order to put other people first right now. This is all grief that comes in big waves, and grief that will come in small waves. But I think that that's not always true. I think there are big waves that we just don't like to feel sometimes. The water might look shallow, but you can't always judge the depth. And that is something that I have definitely learned over the years. It's something that I've had to experience in my body a lot. The feeling of not being able to eat, the feeling of being nauseous, or the feeling of, okay, if I even speak this word, I'm going to cry. And I feel like at some level we all understand what that feels like. And so this week, when we're moving and when we are tapping into grief, we're going to call it in. We're actually not going to call it in. We're going to invite it. Because grief is already at the door being like, I know that you don't want me there. It's us having to bring the invite. It's us having to say, hey, you can come join us now. You can come move with us, because we don't hate you. We want you to join us, but it's a lot to manage. So that's something that I think is going to be a really powerful experience this week. And so when we're moving today, I want you to think of a word that is correlated with grief. So can anybody describe a feeling of grief besides hollow, like a tactile sensation? When you feel grief, do you feel light? Do you feel weighed down? What do you think grief feels like? Drowning. That's a really, really good answer.
I like the weighted down word that you just said, because literally some days I can barely move because it's just so heavy, and it's like negotiating with yourself, like, okay, but I'm gonna brush my teeth, right? And I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna do it, and it's like, yeah, it's like, okay, I'm not doing the dishes, but I brush my teeth, yay. And so, sorry, to get back to the sensation, yes, the weighted down, like the heaviness of barely being able to move, like, really comes to mind.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, I thought you were going to say
No,
something.
sorry.
Oh, and you went, and I'm like, oh. The other one, I really love the drowning, and I like the word heavy. Like, it feels heavy, weighted down, heavy, drowning, floundering. The other one that came to mind is exhausting. Grief is fucking exhausting because you don't know the depth of it. And when we hide it, it seems like it only gets deeper. So it's this constant, the feeling of, okay, where the hell is the life preserver? And the only life preserver is learning how to swim. And so today, through our movement, I want you to just think of the words drowning, heavy, and exhausted. If you are moving and you're like, I don't really know what I'm feeling, because grief is going to try to run away. These feelings will try to run away. If you just tune in, and when we're exhausted, we don't walk faster, we walk slower. When we're tired, we move slower. It takes us longer to do things. So channel that into your movement. Allow yourself to invite grief in and feel what it feels like to allow the entire weight of your body to sink. What it feels like to just surrender to the floor and slowly move. Or if you feel like you're drowning, what does it feel like to come up for air? Things like that can be really helpful with moving through grief. And I like to give that prompt because sometimes we'll start moving and it's like, I just want to move through this and get through it as quickly as I can because this is a hard thing to feel. So really tuning in and feeling that heaviness take over. And the feeling of what it would feel like to be exhausted from grief. Because we've all been exhausted from grief at some point. So calling that in, inviting grief in, and being able to experience it in its wholeness of what it is. Does that sound good, you guys? You ready to move a little bit? Yay!
Hard. Let's all be really sad together.
Yes!
Yes.
Let's grieve, guys! Thank you. And then I'm going to just pull a card for our friends here.
Nice.
Ah. Oh, and we'll move the mats as well. So the card is discern. What movements, leaders, and thoughts have I been following? How has their influence impacted my life? Is there a need to reevaluate the things I am being influenced by? I am best served when I choose to be discerning with what I take, what I choose to become, and a conscious follower, and to be led by inspiring and heart-centered people. We miss you guys.